My name is Scott Bonds, and I'd like to welcome you to the Lion's Den. At the Lion's Den, we have a group of men who have children, sons in particular. So we're discussing Black fatherhood and how things work for each one of us today. We all have our different experiences, and while we understand that being a father is a job in itself, being a Black father can be a whole different type of job. All right, so, when my first child, I had three children, three sons, 27, 21, 4. I know that's crazy. So when my sons were born, I had this thing where I was not going to be in the delivery room. I didn't want to see none of that stuff. I didn't know how it would affect me as a man. I want to keep things sexy still. I didn't want to have that memory. You know what I'm saying? But when my most recent son was born, I kind of got tricked into watching. First I was just in there to help hold the leg, just hold the hand, Then the doctor kept saying, "Oh man, look at all this hair." Getting my interest aroused, you know what I'm saying? So then she asked me to come around to the other side and help. So I walked around, and as I walked around, I kind of took a glimpse. And I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. I might be able to handle this. So then I started watching. The doctor started saying, "Oh, the head is coming. I can see it." My heart started beating. I saw this hair come out. His head was long. I was like, oh, snap. Like, my son's head, something messed up about it. You know what I'm saying? But then he came out, man, and like that experience was like, it was amazing to be able to witness like one of God's greatest miracles, to see a life come into the world like that, up close and personal, And I tell brothers that were like I used to be and didn't want to see that kind of thing for their own fears. I said, bro, you need to see that because it's rare that you're going to have the opportunity to see such a miracle. So I want to know, did any of you guys, were you in the delivery rooms? And, if you were, what was your experience? What did you feel about it?
I'll start out. I was in the delivery room and I wanted to be. I didn't have that fear of seeing anything crazy. But like you said, Scott, it was one of those things that you can't prepare for. So when my son was born, the delivery was, it was a great delivery. But when they had him on the scale, weighing him, and the doctor was, manipulating his limbs and checking to make sure everything was all right, he was talking to me and he looked up at me and tears were just rolling down my eyes because I was overcome with so much emotion at this miracle that was, laying before me. So I think it's something that every man should definitely experience.
Absolutely.
Myself, I've got two children, a 16-year-old and a 4-year-old. A 16-year-old, I'm not his biological father, but I am his father. Unfortunately, his biological father passed when he was 4. I've been in his life since he was 5. My youngest son, crazy story, he was born 2.5 months premature. So that experience for me was it was wild. Was in the delivery room, but they had the sheet up because they're doing the C-section, trying to get him out.
My first son.
In that fashion, and it was more fear than anything, and just trying to stay composed for your wife, or your child's mother, and when they finally brought him out, they had to take him directly to the next room. So it wasn't like I got to see, him be born. I got to see them basically making sure he was going to live. So for me, that was just the main thing, just trying to stay composed. But just actually being in the delivery room, you can't trade that.
Right. Yeah. And before you say something, I wanted to just piggyback on that. I experienced that same feeling because my oldest son, Scotty, he was born 3 months premature. He was 1 pound, 7.4 ounces. I'll never forget those numbers, and he was in a little incubator. Like his foot was like that big. So I feel you, that's a fearful place to be, but to see him come through that, and then in my son's case, and I'm sure in your son's case, he didn't have no complications. He went on and great, nothing wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a blessing in itself.
Okay, so I have 3 sons, 31, 23, and 19. The 3 sons that I have, one of them is from a previous life. And the other 2, the 23 and 19, are from a wife of 24 years. And I went inside of the room, but I never saw the actual, I didn't want to. I was like you, I never got over that fear.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really did that. And I don't necessarily regret it because my wife videotaped the first birth of Kamara, my son. And I seen the videotape a little bit. I glimpsed at it. So, so.
Well, here's the good thing. It's not too late. You can do it again and have the opportunity.
No, sir.
Okay, I just want to put that out there because you
No, sir.
can do it again. All right.
That's all.
Well, for me, I have 4 sons, and I witnessed 2 of them being born, and there's nothing like it. As a man, even as strong men, it's still humbling to watch, and you have to take your hat off to women because they're going through it. We're just there.
That's right.
But they're going through it. But it's amazing, man. It changes your whole perspective on life, period.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So with that being said, I guess the flip side of that situation would be, like, I'm sure we all have friends, or at least have friends that have friends who are, like, might be in denial of their child. They might say, "Nah, I know that child, not mine," or "Yeah, but I ain't got nothing to do with that," or whatever. Like, what's your feeling? What's you guys' feelings on like dudes that just don't want to be involved with their kids for one reason or another? Let me go back. Okay, because you were married to your wife when you had your child.
Yeah.
You were married to your wife when you had your child. You were married to your wife when you had your child, right?
2 of them.
Right, 2 of them. See, my first 2, I wasn't married to their mothers. And I know Mike has a similar situation like that too. So, and this can kind of take us someplace else in the conversation, but when you have a child with someone that you're not married to, it's a whole different kind of situation, you know? Sometimes the relationship that you have with the mother of your child, especially if you're not married, it can cause that dissension between you and your child, you know, and it can become so stressful that you make a conscious choice to not even deal with it, you know? And so I've had conversations with different brothers who've been in situations like that, and I was close myself because, and you know, I wanted to talk about the child support system later, or perhaps even in another segment, but you know, when you find yourself in the child support system, the courts, it's like it feels like everybody's against you. And they don't care how much time you put in with that child. They don't care what conversations that you have with that child. Any of that bonding that you create with that child, they don't take that into consideration. All they want to know is, where's the money? And if you don't have it, you're getting locked up. Right. You know what I'm saying? I used to have, the sheriff used to come to serve me papers so often that he would come to my job, but he would call me on my cell phone. Say, "Hey, Scott, hey, man, you know, I'm out here again. You know, I know you don't want me to come inside your job, you know." And I mean, it just became a part of my everyday life. But the love for my son, because of the example I had as a father, kept me in the game. You know what I'm saying? So it kept me from getting fully to the place that I was like, all y'all want is my money. Take the money, just leave me alone. I don't want nothing to do with nobody. But you can very easily get to that point. You know, so, you know, with your situation being similar to mine, do you have any advice or, you know, something you want to tell the people?
Well, for me, it's rocky. It can be rocky. But my perspective is children don't ask to be here.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
And if we leave them, then there's no hope, period, for them. I mean, some guys, some boys have to have their fathers in their life. Nobody can replace that figure. No matter what man comes in, he could be a great man that comes in, but if that dad, he's looking for that father. It's a connection that God created. And if you walk away, you're not just tearing up his life, you tearing up the life after that too.
Mhm.
So we have to stay there.
That's right.
So for me, it's just my goal. I strive to be the best father, or just an inch of a father that my father was to me.
That's right.
So I think that foundation did it all for me.
Yeah. We're gonna definitely talk about that.
I got a situation similar to that with my oldest son. It's real interesting because he was born and I didn't know. She moved to California and got married. And she left Charlotte and moved and got married, but she was pregnant. And she said that it was someone else's child. Okay? So I didn't know I had him until he was 2 or 3 years old. I don't remember. So once I found out, I was happy because I had a son. So then I tried to be a father at that young age like that. But when I started to have him in my life, after 4 or 5 years old, he'd come down and visit me. I was already married. And he got burned in the bathtub by hot water. And my wife was the one that was giving him a bath. So his mother said she did it on purpose. We had to take him to the hospital and everything. And my wife didn't do it on purpose, but that's what was said. And as a result, she became angry. His mother became angry and said, I'm not going to let him come back down there. Okay. Then we was going back and forth, and I asked to have him. And she said, no, you never see him again. But that was at that time. She didn't really mean that. But my mistake, it was my selfishness. Because once she didn't let me raise him, because at that time I had this idealistic view about fatherhood. I wanted to raise him as a Muslim boy. When she didn't let me raise him, I cut off all communication for 6 years, which is selfish on my part, real selfish on my part, if you really look at the immaturity regarding that decision that I made. And when I was a school teacher at the Carter G. Woodson School, it was my principal that would always kind of remind me, talk to your son, talk to your son. You need to talk to him. And I was just afraid to reestablish that connection. It was a fear. So when he was about 13, one day I just picked up the phone and called. And his mother answered and put him on the phone. And that was a blessing because he didn't hold no animosity or bitterness. For all of those years, I was just an absent father for that boy. But later on, he had to take therapy because his therapist said it was that disconnection for those 7 years, or 6 years, however long it was, it was that disconnection that caused this boy to have these problems later in life. So that's kind of like what my experience is. And with the child support system, it's the same thing with, as Scott said. I had to pay child support for 18 years. I ended up paying it for 21. I just kept them coming out my check. I don't know who was getting those checks. I just wanted to do a little more because I wasn't there. So that's my experience with that.
Yeah, that's definitely good stuff. The funny thing about the child support situation with me is I used to go in the office. This was before they had the electronic situation that you do nowadays. But I would go in the office. I would have to say my son's mother's name, and then I'd say my son's name, and I would be so frustrated, doing this, taking this money down there and everything. But he'd been with me all week sometimes and all that kind of stuff. And the lady told me one time, she said, well, don't worry about it, baby. The good thing is they grow up. Well, he was like 3 years old. So I couldn't be real excited about that, you know what I'm saying? But just like that, he's 27, so, that's part of just being a strong man. You get through it, like they say, what doesn't kill you sometimes makes you stronger. In that case, it made me stronger. The next question, what would you say is your main thing that you aspire to make your sons understand in particular? You definitely want to know what your daughters are, we want to instill certain things in your daughters, but your sons, what do you really want them to take from you more than anything else?
I think that's a powerful,
it's broad. Yeah, it's a broad question.
It's a powerful question because I think the main thing that I wanted my son to get from me to take away is I wanted him to be independent, I wanted him to be strong, and I wanted him to be confident and secure in who he was. As a person, as a black man in this society, that's real important to me. And he's the only child, so I want him to be confident enough in his own ability to rely on himself. That was my biggest thing. But I would say that's the main thing.
Hard to piggyback off that. Now you hit the nail on the head. Similar with me. A lot of discipline. My father was military, so just that hard work ethic, knowing that ain't nothing in life free. You have to work for it, you have to earn it, and also just knowing that as men, you can be vulnerable to a certain extent, if I could say that. Sometimes I think as men we don't really share our emotions. We don't talk the way we should. And I know for me, with the military father, I'm the youngest. I had 2 older brothers. So I'm not gonna say me and my father weren't tight, but my brothers schooled me a little bit more than what my daddy did. My daddy told me this, told me that, but a lot of what I picked up was from my older brothers. And for my sons, I just want them to know that you can talk to your dad, you can talk to family members, and you ain't gotta necessarily hold stuff, and deal with stuff on them. I think that's some of the things that as men we tend to do. We don't lean on our brothers or our sisters or our family the way that I think we should. So I think that's what I would do.
And that's a very strong statement, because what largely inspired this idea, it wasn't the Red Table Talks, it wasn't the LeBron Show. It was the fact that in writing the book that I'm now finishing up, will be coming out soon, called Trust the Process, Embrace the Journey. When I started writing that book, I had a lot of anger and animosity towards certain people and situations that occurred from a business standpoint in particular. But as I began to write, the further I got into the book, I realized I felt differently because my anger had dissipated. So I was giving myself a form of therapy through writing my feelings and emotions and putting it in a book. So that made me realize that, if I took the time to go see a counselor and talk about other things that were relevant in my life, it would probably have the same healing effects on me. And then I ran into this brother right here in the mall, my friend Mike, and I hadn't seen Mike in a while, and I knew that his father had passed away. And he shared some things with me, and just knowing that he had to get some help, some counseling to help him get through that, which we'll discuss a little bit later in the show. But, it really made me understand even greater how it's so much power in just talking to someone, especially if that someone looks like you, another Black man who has had similar experiences and traveled a similar journey as you have. Because a lot of times we don't talk because we talk to be strong, not cry, brush it off, man up. You know what I'm saying? But on the inside, everything that we're holding in is eating at the very fiber of who we are and who we're supposed to be. And then that translates to affecting all the things and people that you love. And all of a sudden you got a mess that you're trying to figure out, and you can't figure it out because you too proud to talk to somebody. And like, I encourage all my friends know they can be as transparent as possible with me. Like, I'm gonna tell you how I feel. I'm gonna be transparent with you, and it's gonna stay with us in our conversation. And I think everybody needs to do that more. And that's a big part of why we have the Lions Den, to be transparent and help one another through these situations that we all encounter as men. But go ahead.
So one of the things that respect for his mother, when my sons were born. So my youngest son, he was about, I don't know, maybe about 2 or whatever, little boy. And I had a rule. You couldn't go in the kitchen at a threshold. And they respected that. But what my wife told me was, Darryl, see your son right there? Yes, ma'am. he'd be talking back to me. And I didn't believe her. I didn't believe her. I was like, this is not true. It's not how I'm raising this boy. She said, okay. And then one day, I walked in the dining room area. He was at the threshold, and she told him not to come in. And he said, no. That right there, I grabbed him by his collar. Grabbed him by his collar. Now, this is a true story. I took him in his room, closed the door. I know my wife was in all, but he gonna kill him. Closed the door, put him against the wall, and said, if you ever talk to your mother like that, I will kill you. Straight up like that.
And I remember you telling me that story.
Put him down, and it never happened again. Never. And I asked her, she said, you can do it. I feared, I scared the hell out of them, to be honest with you. But I always wanted them to respect their mother. This established a boundary in your relationship with your mother. You see her as a queen. This is your mother. Open the door for your mother. When you see her pull up, run outside. Anything that she needs, you get it. That was primary for some reason in my training. I didn't have a father like that growing up. My father was in jail most of my life. And so I wanted to be a father, a good father, because I didn't have one. And I used to weep over that sometimes. He wasn't there, but I still loved him. My mother said, why you love him so much? I said, because that's my daddy. But the last point I'll make is this. So I wanted to be this father, and my ideals and ideas of fatherhood came when I joined Nation of Islam. And so I had an idealistic view. So I wanted to discipline more, and this kind of training, military or paramilitary training that I was giving my sons, teaching them how to drill. All of these things that we're taught in the Nation of Islam, I wanted to instill that in them so that they could be respectful, upright, disciplined, respect their mother, and be kind to women. So I wanted them to have that idea. Now, business-wise, I really didn't go deep into that with them because I don't have that mind. The only thing I taught them was this. I said, brother, this is how you make money. You buy some wholesale, sell it retail. So I bought them a whole bunch of them little oils, right? I put the money up, gave them, I said, you always got to have 100 customer lists. If you ever need any money, that's how you make it. And my son wanted a $21 coloring book. I said, no, I ain't buying it. I said, but what I do, I gave him them 10 oils, I dressed him up. I said, now go and get your money. And he went and got it. He was so happy. Yes, sir. That's awesome.
Good stuff.
To piggyback on what he was saying, all of you, I think similar to everyone on this panel right here, for me, it is about respecting the mother. No matter what, if you don't respect your mom, you're not going to respect any other woman in life. Understand that. So for me, that was number one. I would tell them a lot of times, don't worry about me, just make sure your mom's okay. You know, because I had different situations. I've never been married. But also, you want to teach them or leave them a skill. Like for me, my father worked with his hands. So although I was pretty smart in school, those things that he taught me have carried me a lot in life, even though I veered off the path here and there. If you teach your kids, I try to give all my sons the best of me because I got spared. Like I went through some situations that we can talk about later that probably none of you guys went through, but I went through some situations and put myself in and hurt my children along the way by doing those things. But God allowed me to be here and give them every bit of me. Just like you, even my youngest son, you know, I try to teach him the business side of life. So I tell him all the time, your dream is your dream, not mine.
Right.
But I'm going to support whatever your dream is. Don't play ball because that's what I did. One of my sons started doing that, my oldest one. Then he found what he wanted to do in life.
Right.
Now he's on Broadway.
Right. I remember you told me about that.
I got
Give him a plug real quick, man. Tell
Oh, well, I have a son that's blessed and fortunate enough to be part of the Hamilton tour.
Wow.
But what he did, and I had to thank him for it, and I watched him, he pursued that dream. He got into it because of his other son by another mother. I mean, his other brother, excuse me. His brother who was by someone else. But he took it and he went somewhere else with it.
That's fantastic. That's good stuff.
But I teach him all, for a while he struggled because he was trying to do, all I knew as a black man was sports. That's it. We sometimes put our kids in boxes, So for me, I want to teach him, I want to give him the best of me, not the worst, but the best. So like my youngest son, he's 12 now. He wanted to do his own clothing line. So I took him to Barnes and Nobles. We got a business book. I said, you got to read this thing backwards and forwards. Write me a plan of who your target market is, what you're trying to do, all of it. Give it to me. I'm going to make an investment, but you got to work with me on Saturdays to save some money. I'm going to go half with you. So we came up with a clothing line called Future King at 12. Does his own drawings. And my other son had bought the machine, so he brings all of it to life. But the biggest thing I'm saying here is we have to show them that they can achieve anything, but they got to put the effort. Because nobody, like you said, nobody's giving you nothing in life.
Right.
And as a black man, it's even harder now. And we have to keep them off the streets. It's even harder now than before when we were younger. You see so many young kids dying now, and the streets are calling our sons. They're calling them. So to piggyback on what every one of you said, I mean, it's great to know that you have a man sitting here telling you, he teaches his son to open the door. I do that all the time. I told myself, listen, you better get out there. She should never open the door.
Right.
Pump her gas or none of that.
That's right.
But that's something I seen, though. I was blessed enough to have my father who showed me that. So, but he didn't have that. Two different situations, but the same result.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's some good stuff. And when I had the opportunity to speak at schools, elementary schools, high schools and stuff, and I form relationships with some of these kids, a lot of them are on the surface, they're angry, but when I get a chance to talk to them to find out where is this anger coming from, so many times it's the lack of their father in their life or that male relationship with someone they feel like really cares about them. I mean, it's really heartbreaking when you hear some of the stories and some of the things that some of these kids say. And, they gravitate towards these negative things out in the streets. And like he said, the streets are calling our kids. And, this group right here, we've been very fortunate that all of our kids are here, still breathing. We're going to see them later, hopefully. That's a blessing. And unfortunately, as a black man today, we don't have the luxury of knowing that that's going to be the case every day. Because every day it seems like we hear about somebody else getting murdered in the streets, whether it's by our own hands or by the police or whatever. That's our reality today.
Well, can I say one more thing? One other thing that I've tried to instill in them, or even my daughters, but I know we're talking about sons now, we have to prepare them for when we're not here. And that's something we do not talk about as parents or people or whoever.
Okay, so I want to let you say something, but that's where we're going to go next. We're going to take a break after this gentleman.
Oh, no, I was just going to piggyback on what he said. Now, that's why independence was so big for me when I said I wanted him to be independent because I'm not going to be here always,
Right.
And I also like to talk about the woman issue. I think that a lot of times the young boys don't respect women because they don't have good examples of men respecting women and seeing women for who they are, and even in relationship with, I had my mom and dad in my life, but I didn't see my dad treat my mom like the queen. He was there, but he didn't have those skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Daryl's in it.
Yes, sir.
I think what Daryl said as far as the church or the mosque teaching him certain things, for me, the spirituality, Christianity that taught me certain things about how I wanted my house to be. Because a lot of men don't have the skills, But there are things out here and resources out here, whether it's spiritually, whether it's picking up a book, or just following somebody that you admire to learn those skills on how to treat women, how to raise your sons, and I'm gonna close with this. Brothers, you will miss out on the most important blessing in your life if you're not a part of your kids' life.
That's right.
It's just something that you'll never be able to get. I'm sorry. It's just something that you'll never be able to get if you don't pour into them who you are,
Absolutely. And like they say, they can't be it if they don't see it.
That's right.
So it's important for us to show that example as much as we possibly can. And, by dealing with the things on the inside, as Mike said, you're able to be the best version of yourself that your kids deserve to experience.